Hi, True Avatars, and welcome back. This is episode 10 of True Avatars, a queer video game podcast. I am your host, Zoe Wild, transgender and bisexual as ever. My pronouns are she, her. This week, I have a special guest, Undiscovered Country, a 3-person dev team from Toronto. 2/3 of Undiscovered Country will be joining me later on for this week's segment. First off, though, it's just me. This week, I hope you'll join me as I talk about what I've been playing, the news, which has been really quiet since the year is starting to wind down, and then the aforementioned segment, an interview with Undiscovered Country. So let's jump right into things. What I've been playing lately, I've been playing a game. I haven't had a ton of time this week to play games. The heat is out in our apartment, so it's just been a matter of staying warm. But I did pick up Dungeons of Dreadrock 2, The Dead King's Secret on Switch. I don't think it's out actually for a couple more days on Steam, so PC, but I played the first one a couple years ago when it came out, which is super fun. It's got a premise with a female lead about she's saving her brother who's been sent deep into the dungeons as a human sacrifice. It's got a very, very humorous script, a great art style that's very Zelda-like. It was made by one person, and I mentioned Zelda-like. The most important thing about this game is that every single level in this game is just one contained puzzle, like a single room in a 2D Zelda dungeon. So basically, there's 100 levels, and you're basically playing 100 mini Zelda dungeons to beat the game. So the second one, though, is the one I've been playing. And it's got a female lead, a different female lead, and it can be played without playing the first one. But there are a couple caveats to that. So the story ties in heavily with the first game, so you'd be missing out on a lot of, references, things. Like there's like very obvious scenes in the game where you're like, okay, that's from the first game. I've got to know what's going on there. Now, to beat the puzzle, you don't need to understand that really. But to get the full experience, I think you should play the first one. Plus, the first one is really good. But actually, the more important reason for playing the first one first is that the difficulty ramp up in the first one more or less continues on at the beginning of the second game. So basically, the beginning of the second game is not as easy as the first handful of levels in the first game. So the second game is much harder, with not only figuring out the puzzle solution, but you also need very precise timing. So in the first game, it's more just like, okay, what spots do I need to kind of move around, and like, how do I figure out this room from positioning wise aspect to actually solve the puzzles. But in the second game, there's that, but there's also the added difficulty of like, okay, I also have to time every choice I make properly, because you can't just move to the space you need to move to, but you also have to figure out what is the best timing to get that thing to work. I'm trying not to spoil too much, so I'm being very, very vague here. I also haven't finished it. I'm want to say 30 levels in, so I'm not even halfway yet. But so far it's very good. And also there's a little bit of a twist with this game in terms of how the dungeons work. I won't spoil it. It's also not a major thing because each level is still one mini level. It's all very contained, but there is a little more Zelda-iness to it that I won't spoil. But once you play it, you'll go, oh, okay, I see what they're doing here. It's not exactly the same as the first game, but it's still conceptually, it's a little different. But fundamentally, from a playthrough perspective, it doesn't really change much. So the one thing I will say though is that if you've been disappointed with the open-endedness to puzzle solutions in recent Zelda games like Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, and especially Echoes of Wisdom, this game is for you, because each room really only has one solution. As far as I can tell, there isn't a second solution to any of the rooms. Whatever the solution is, you need to get it exactly on point. There's no other way to beat the room. And also, that is super nice actually, is that they do give you hints on how to beat the dungeon. Or the level, I should say. If you want it. They're not in the room, you don't find them. It's more like when you press the R button on Switch. If you hold that, it'll give you a hint. And each hint has a level of spoiler. So it's not just one hint either. It's each room has they'll give you the step-by-step solution. So if the first time you press the hint button, it'll give you okay, you need to move this enemy over here. And you're okay, that seems simple enough. I got to get the enemy over here. But then you're okay, but how do I get the enemy over here? And the next one will be okay, here's the first clue to doing that. And then the final hint is usually okay, here's what you do. So if you want that accessibility feature, it is there. Zelda games do not have that. If you get stuck in Zelda, you either A, have to have a guidebook, or B, have access to the internet. And again, most people have access to one or two of those things, but I remember 20 years ago when I was a little kid and I didn't have access to everything. I just gave up on Zelda games because I couldn't figure out the solution because I have one brain cell. So generally, I would just give up. But this game at least gives you the option that if you are feeling silly or you're like, hey, I got the last 30 puzzles, but the 31st puzzle's really messing with me. Like, I do not know what to do here. Or I think I have the solution, but it's still not working. You can check the hints to like see, oh, I am moving in the right direction. So I just got to keep thinking through this. And the nice thing too is that these games are not super expensive. The first game is a lot cheaper than the second because it was the developer's first game. So I do recommend picking up the first one, playing that. If you like it, pick the second one up. I think the first one, when I bought it, was on half off. I think it was like $3 or $4 on Steam, and that was Canadian. I think on Switch it was a little more expensive, but still only maybe, I want to say $10 at full price. The second game on Switch is $20 at full price. I think that's worth it. I really love the first game. The second game, I feel like more or less has probably more story content, but it's still, I think, only 100 levels. Again, I haven't reached the end, so I don't know that it's 100 levels like the first one, but I have to assume it's at least 100. If it's more, that's cool, but like I think for $20, like the amount of love and care from one person put into this game, it's worth it to me. So really, really, really highly recommend this game. Of all the Zelda-likes that have come out over the last few years, this is my favorite series. Now, there is supposed to be a third game in the trilogy. I don't know where the second one is going to tie in with the third one, but I think the developer also said when all the games were done, there'd be a physical version released too. So you could also wait for that to get them all in one set if you're a physical collector. But given that the second game took about 2.5 years to complete, and I'm not sure what the scope will be for the third game, or if it'll even get made. If this one's not successful, who knows? But like, it could be a ways off yet. So I would recommend supporting the developer while you can, and then maybe picking up the physical later. I'm going to pick up the physical regardless, because I love these games, and I would love to have them as a nice complete set, complete on cartridge someday. But yeah, I know these games are amazing. I highly recommend them. Again, the title is Dungeons of Dreadrock. So the first one is just called Dungeons of Dreadrock. The second one is called Dungeons of Dreadrock 2. Let me just double check the subtitle here. The Dead King's Secret. So highly, highly recommend. I'm not sure if they're on PlayStation. I'm not sure if they're on Xbox. I should have checked before I started recording. Actually, you know what? I can record and I can pause and I can come back and tell you if they're on PlayStation or Xbox. So give me a second here. Okay, so I am back. First off, go check out the website. It's super adorable. There's this cute little graphic that like switches between the first and the second game. Super, super cute. Love it. However, it looks like the first game is on Switch, Steam, iOS, and Android. And to quote the meme, don't you guys have phones? I mean, you can also play this with the touchscreen on Switch. It doesn't have a lot of buttons to do. It has like, at most, 4 actions, plus the hint. Again, I haven't played it on iOS or Android, so I can't speak to performance. I can't speak to accessibility, obviously, but you could pick it up there. I think it would be just as enjoyable on a phone as it would be on Switch or Steam Deck. The first one is Steam Deck compatible. I played it there before it even had like the approval, not the approval, but like before it had been tested. And I had like 0 issues with it. I have had a couple performance issues with the second one on Switch, some very minor things. Like when I'm skipping through text, I noticed when you press A, it also doesn't only skips through the text, but the animation in the background speeds up a little bit. And there was one time where I actually completed a puzzle, and then I went to go like light a fire, which is kind of like a save point. Also, it progresses the story. But once I clicked the fire, the game just froze. So I couldn't do anything. I couldn't progress. And when I like rebooted the game, of course, I had to redo the puzzle. And the puzzle was kind of a pain in the ass. It was a fun solution, but also it was so timing sensitive to everything that like it took me another like, I want to say 10 to 15 tries to actually beat it. Again, I said I had one brain cell. So anyway, so the first game, Dungeons of Dreadrock. The second game, Dungeons of Dreadrock 2, The Dead King's Secret. Again, so it looks like it is coming to iOS and Android at some point for the sequel. November 28th, so it's already out on Switch for the second one, and the second one comes out December 5th on Steam. Yeah, pick them up, play them, they're great. Not as long as a legit Zelda game, obviously, but I think given the price it is and the love and care that's put into these games, and honestly the cleverness of the puzzles, I find a lot of them a lot harder than Zelda puzzles too, so I could ramble about this forever, but highly recommend. I'm going to move on to the news, though. So this week, again, like I said, slow news week. So our first headline is that Riot Games will now ban players for bad behavior outside of their games. And I know what you're thinking. They're going to ban players outside of their games. How does that work? Are they stalking you? How will they know? And it's a bit simpler than that, although it's still a little kind of weird. But so Riot Games, they're known for League of Legends and Valorant. They're updating their terms of service on January 3rd, and they will now be able to ban players for, quote-unquote, off-platform content. So they said, if you say or do things that break our terms of service while broadcasting or creating content about our games, we can restrict access to your Riot accounts, and in brackets, and suspend your partner privileges if you are part of our partner program. That's probably the key there. Though we aren't going to proactively monitor everything that happens across social media, it is now within our rights to issue penalties in-game when that content is brought to our attention. So basically, it sounds like they want to control how people treat others and what they say when they're outside the main game, but limited to content that directly relates to their intellectual property. So if you're like streaming League of Legends, for example, I guess if you said something disparaging to another player or about a viewer maybe, or again, if you were saying it, I guess, to yourself in the stream, but you don't actually do anything through the main game, they could still, oh, you're being transphobic? Okay, so we're going to ban you or suspend you or do what have you. So I feel like my opinion's a little wild on this, but I think this is fair. Obviously, there's some overreaching going on here. There's the possibility of abusing this power by banning people who some might think have done nothing wrong. But that risk exists with banning people who violate the terms of service in the game as well. So I just think if it's used to prevent things like bullying, I think that's a good thing, especially if it's like racial, homophobic, or transphobic bullying. I'm all for it. Again, they haven't enabled this yet. It's not January 3rd yet. So everything that they're saying they're going to do remains to be seen. We don't know how much they're going to be doing this. And I don't also play League of Legends or Valorant, so this really doesn't affect me. I just thought this kind of like tangentially related to transphobic bullying. And I did actually look it up too. This is kind of interesting. I found a Reddit post from a year ago discussing this very topic. So Riot stated that they wanted to do something about transphobic bullying, specifically transphobic bullying in the Valorant community outside the game. And most of the comments in this Reddit post were like, well, how are they supposed to do anything about it? And I guess this is their solution. And again, it's not perfect. But I also do think that maybe it's time for a governing body like the EU to start regulating what boundaries and restrictions, terms of service that digital enterprises like game companies and social media platforms are allowed to set. Because like terms of service, like my maybe controversial opinion, I don't know, is that terms of service are already overreaching. They're giving themselves the right to our photos and our data. I don't care if someone signs a contract. I think there should be limits to what people can actually put in a contract. Like, if you put something illegal in a contract and someone signs it, does that give you the right to do something illegal to that person? I think that's silly. Also, I'm not a lawyer, so I could be completely off base on this. I just think it might be a good thing, where possible, to limit queerphobic bullying. So hopefully this is for the better. Maybe it won't even be effective at all. Who knows? Maybe they'll try and it won't work. They also have to verify that the content you're creating matches the username you have in game. Like, mistakes could be made, or they might not be able to prove which account is yours. If you're on YouTube making a Valorant video, if your username isn't on the screen, or even if it is, can they verify that that's your username? You could be using somebody else's footage, either with permission or without. Like, who knows, right? Is someone going to get accidentally banned for this? Now, again, I don't think all of this is a reason to not do this. I think the reasons to not do this basically go to like how much reach is a company allowed to have over what you say and do. And I'm all about free speech. I think people should stop being transphobic to each other and stop being mean in general. Yeah, you can be a dick to someone, and that's technically free speech. But free speech only exists in certain areas of the law. If you're using someone else's platform, I think they do have the ability and the right to moderate what you say and how you act towards people. So, I mean, I don't think free speech really goes and applies here. But again, I'm not a lawyer. It might differ between countries. I do think that, like, it's a double-edged sword here. There's two sides of this coin. The street goes both ways. It could be a good thing. It could be a bad thing. Anyway, I am rambling because I'm by myself today, as you can tell. So let's move on to, this comes from Video Games Chronicle. It doesn't. It comes from a blog post too, but I'm citing a lot of Video Games Chronicle information here because they kind of boiled it down to the bullet points, which I'm now going to do for you. But so Baldur's Gate 3 is adding new features next year, which is pretty exciting. I still haven't played Baldur's Gate 3. I was going to pick it up maybe in the autumn sale, but I still don't have time to play it. I barely have time to play like a 3-hour Zelda-like, as I mentioned before. So I don't know if I'm going to have time to play Baldur's Gate 3, but it also didn't go on sale for a new low price. I was hoping for, I think it's 20%. I was hoping for like 30 or 40 if I'm being honest, mainly because if I'm going to buy a game I not be able to play. I'd like to spend a little bit less money on it. But anyway, we've also talked about Baldur's Gate 3 a bunch, so I feel like this news article is kind of relevant, especially on a slow news week. So anyway, in 2025, Larian, the developer, is adding cross progression, so you can carry your save and gameplay across different platforms. So if I were to buy the game on PC and PS5, I would be able to move from my PC to my PS5 seamlessly with my progress carrying over. With that, they're also adding crossplay, so you can play with your friends no matter which platform you're all on. So if my friend is on PS5, Ekami in a previous podcast said she plays on PS5, and I bought it on PC for, let's say, and I wanted to play on my Steam Deck, we could play together. They're also adding a new photo mode with a bunch of features like lens settings, frames, stickers, among other things. I mean, it seemed like a pretty standard photo mode what they were talking about. So like, it's got all the basic features you'd want out of a good photo mode. And they're also finally adding, finally, I say final because this is the last bullet point. Not finally, they're adding these subclasses. 12 new subclasses, one for each of the existing classes in the game. I'm not going to get into what all those are because, to be honest, I haven't played enough Baldur's Gate 3 or seen enough about it to really fully understand what each of those means. So I'm not going to give commentary on those, just that there's 12 new subclasses, one for each of the existing classes. And they will start stress testing the update with select players in January. So assumedly, the update will come shortly after that. I don't know how shortly after that. But all they said about a release date was next year, and they're going to start stress testing in January. So I don't know. My intuition says February or March, personally, but I guess that would also depend on the stress testing. Our last news story of the week is that Xbox is ending their avatar editor app, and you're probably asking me, Zoe, what is that? I've never heard of it. Neither have I. But our show is called True Avatars, and we've talked about literal in-game avatars a bunch, so I think it's fitting that I cover this story. So in an FAQ, Xbox said the avatar editor app was closing on January 9th due to, you guessed it, low engagement. So yeah, that's pretty self-explanatory. But basically, your avatars and purchased items will no longer be available, and the app itself will be unavailable on consoles and PC. They are refunding purchases made between November 2023 and January 9th of next year. You will still have your Xbox original avatar on Xbox 360 consoles, however. Like I said, I've never heard of this app. So again, that's probably why it's closing. Nobody's heard of it. I own an Xbox too, so I feel like they should have made it clear it was available. Like when you boot up a Nintendo Wii, you basically have to make a Mii when you first do that. But essentially, like Mii's, it was like Mii's. You could create an avatar, like a little character, to represent you on your console. You could make it look like you as much as you want, or like someone else. And then you could use it on your profile picture, or use it as your profile picture, or as what they call a gamer pic. I think that's just their name for it. I guess whatever your avatar is on Xbox, or your profile picture. It's too bad it's going, honestly, because like now I'm learning about this and I'm like, actually, that seems pretty cool. I would like to create one of these. But since it's going away entirely, making one now would be pointless because I would have it for about a month. So maybe I'll try it anyway. But in some smallish way, there will be fewer queer people now who can experiment with their appearance or represent their, true self or their true avatar, via their Xbox profile picture. So not the end of the world, really, but still a little disappointing. But even Mii's are going the way of the dodo, too. So Mii's aren't on your Switch anymore. They're only on the web browser for your Nintendo account. And I think maybe you can still make them your Switch profile picture. But to be honest, I'm not 100% sure. I didn't check. To be honest, as much as I like having an avatar creator, I'm over Mii's, to be honest. When they were replaced slightly in Nintendo Switch Sports, I kind of liked the Nintendo Switch Sports avatars a little bit more. But I think I'm very much in the minority there. But a lot of video games offer avatar creation, so it's not like it's going to be completely out of fashion to make avatars. Like lots of games give you the option, so it does suck that Nintendo and Microsoft are basically kind of abandoning their meaningful avatar creation tools. But it does make you wonder if it's because players aren't utilizing them. Maybe they just need to make better ones that have better options available. Like I said, I think the Mii's are a little outdated. And maybe Xbox will come back with a better avatar editor in a few years that'll be better advertised. Who knows? Anyway, I'm going to take a short break, which will just be a slight pause in the podcast, and then we're going to come back with our guests this week, Undiscovered Country. Hey everyone, today I'd like to welcome two video game creators, Maddi Patton, a bisexual woman. Maddi's pronouns are she, her. Maddi has worked as a writer on several TV series for Nickelodeon, HBO, PBS, TVO, and CBC, several web series, and games. She is famous for creating the series My Pride. Maddi has also been nominated for 3 Writers Guild of Canada awards, and she won once for My Pride. Hi, Maddi. And Alexander Martin, who goes by Alex, as well as the handle droquen online, has made games like Yerke's Paradise, Cruel World, Awake, and most famously, Starseed Pilgrim, which was nominated for an IndieCade Finalist Award in 2013 and Excellence in Design at the Independence Game Festival. And Excellence in Design. Sorry. And Excellence in Design at the Independent Games Festival in 2013. Alex is also a very cool ally. Hi, Alex.
Hello. It's me.
Maddi and Alex are 2/3 of Undiscovered Country, a new game studio that is just setting out on its first game. Maddi is the lead writer for this brand new game, and Alex is the director. You have a third member of Undiscovered Country who couldn't join us today, Alistair Braun. He's the artist on the game. So, how are you both doing today?
I'm good.
I'm great. Alistair, we don't know how Alistair's
We have no idea. He's at work right now, so we assume poor.
Okay, so let's just kind of break the ice. What kind of games do you both like to play? I'm curious to know what some of your favorite games are.
I like RPG games that are super narrative based. So like my favorite game from when I was a child is Dragon Age Origins. My favorite game I've played recently was Return of the Obra Dinn and Disco Elysium. I like games that don't require me to have fast reflexes because I don't have those. I just like to participate in a story. How about you, Alex?
I have gone through many phases of liking different types of games. Like I really liked Dark Souls a lot, and then Dark Souls 2 came out and I played it and I was like, yeah, I already played Dark Souls. And recently I really liked Slay the Princess. Thought that was great. Super good, very inspiring. Our game was kind of inspired by it.
And we just talked to the developers. They're
did.
So cool.
They
They also live in Toronto and we love them so much.
I think it was a lot of very useful advice.
Very much.
And I feel like I say kill gameplay a lot these days.
That's
Also I really like La Mulana. La Mulana is great. That's from a past life. Also Majora's Mask. All right, I'm gonna shut up.
No, you guys have both have great taste.
Oh wait,
He has one more.
Before it.
Link's Awakening. I hadn't played it until I played the new one, and it's like such like a nice, sweet story. There's also a lot of gameplay, but this was like just before my kill gameplay era. I loved it. It was so nice, and it was like, and everything was a dream, and everything is sad, and wasn't that nice? And I thought it was really nice.
That is nice. You can also want to kill gameplay and still enjoy gameplay sometimes.
Okay.
So you don't have to live by your principles to the point where you're like, I can never play a game I love again. Like that's so silly.
True.
Yeah.
Also play Splatoon 3 with my partner a lot. That's nice. It's so nice to have.
Out of left field.
I know. Okay, that's it. I promise.
Well, you mentioned my second favorite 2D Zelda game, so I like you already.
Sweet. Wait, is your favorite the first one or the second one?
Minish Cap.
Oh, I love Minish Cap. Minish Cap rules.
It's so cute. I like how when he becomes tiny, you fight basically the enemies you kill in one hit or the bosses. That's my favorite part. It's so good.
It is so good. It's so well done.
You guys should be in love.
Well, we're on a podcast together. It's
You are.
basically
That's the same thing.
It's the same thing.
Partnered, but you should be in love, and you are because you're on a podcast. Incredible.
So tell me about Undiscovered Country. What are you guys all about?
Oh, do you want to do the quote from the movie?
Which quote from which movie?
You made a little meme from.
Oh my god! That's what Alistair made us a meme. You know,
Alistair made
it. He does have good taste. There's like a scene in Scott Pilgrim versus the World where like
it's
the
not
band.
From the movie. It's
from the comic. Yeah. But there's a band, and then the drummer's like, "We are Undiscovered Country, and we're here to make you feel sad and think about death and stuff." That's what we're about.
I think that's in the movie too.
Yeah, all right. Exactly. So the Scott Pilgrim quote, that's essentially our whole thing. And we also look like the three characters, which is weird. Anyway, when we were applying for funding, we talked a lot more in depth than that. We're making a co-op. So we're doing like a flat structure of hierarchy so that we are all equals all the time. And we want to have a neurodivergent friendly workplace. So a big thing is we all have some ADHD, some neurospiciness to us. And we're trying to create a workspace that is friendly to that and doesn't make that feel like a flaw, but sort of like, because it can be a superpower if you direct it in the right way. So that's one of the things we're about. And we also talk a lot about having very genuine stories about things that hit people on a personal level. So we've talked about doing queer stories. We talked about doing stories about topics that are hard to talk about, like death and loss and letting go of things, etc.
And also like about like all of the creative people involved getting to like this is part of this, but like getting to tell kind of like personal stories about how they're feeling and what they think about things.
And you always talk about how when you worked in Have you worked in AAA games? When you worked in bigger things?
Like AAA, maybe. I don't have S. Okay. That's a thing.
Yeah, sure. But
AAA.
No, you're fine. I've never heard that term before, but it's fine. But like you were talking about how you don't feel like you're doing your contributions are actually making it into the game, right? Like you want stuff we do to everybody who works on it feels like they're making a difference in it.
Yeah, like it feels like in like larger, as productions get larger, there's just more of a tendency to like throw stuff away. Like everyone wants to do stuff and contribute creatively, but it doesn't feel like there's like a good structure for doing that. There's usually like one person at the top who's like, I've got a vision, and then everyone else is like doing stuff to try and like approximate that vision. And then when that person's vision changes, stuff just like disappears. It's very weird. I don't like it. Like, I mean, I'm coming from like I'm a one person studio. I make something, and so when I throw stuff away, I know I'm doing it, and I try to throw less stuff away. But like if I'm on a team, I especially don't want to throw other people's stuff away. And it's weird to me that so much stuff gets thrown out.
But I think it's interesting though, because like what we're doing right now, we're doing our demo, and we have all talked to each other about how like we're practicing kind of with this, and it all might get thrown out. I think as long as you're all like in agreement that like we are working together to figure out what we're doing. Like I feel like if you work really hard on something and you're like, this is going to be in the game, and then you want to play the game later and you're like, oh, it got cut and no one told me. Like as long as we're all aware of what we're doing and like all make decisions together, and it's never one person's vision, it's like a co-vision, and things that the things that we throw away is like stuff we all consent to throw away. Because I think it's healthy to get rid of some stuff. But like just having the consent of everybody.
And you have all this like really great writers room experience, and like I really appreciate that you're here. Writers rooming it up.
Writers rooming it up, my guy. Although we've only done that one writing room, but we'll do more. I think now that we're doing the one script
of like we throw just all kinds of ideas, we have them, and you're like, hey, like sometimes things need to get thrown out.
Absolutely.
But we are all like, you know, the co-op, the flat structure, like we're all on board. We talk about when things need to go away, and we all understand why.
Yeah, which is awesome. And I'm really enjoying your notes. I haven't applied them yet, but I'm enjoying the creative back and forth.
I'm enjoying it too.
Yeah.
That's really sweet, actually. I like that. I like that idea.
Yeah.
I like that you're taking that approach. So how did you all meet? Like what made you guys start making it, like decide to start, I can't speak today, start making a game together?
Well,
do you want to talk in chronological order of the events that occurred?
I will,
yes.
But I feel like my timeline's going to be different because I don't remember entirely. Well, first I met Alistair. I met him on New Year's Eve. It's funny, when I met him, the first thing we talked about, someone was like, hey, Maddi, you're a writer. Here's an artist. Talk to each other. Maybe you should make something together. And then like a year later, we were like, maybe we should make something together. So that's how I met Alistair. And then a few months later, I was at my friend Aya's birthday party, and I was really bored. And I was about to leave. And then a mutual friend of ours was Tristan. He was like, hey, have you met Alex Martin? He makes games, and you get funding, and he should get funding for his games. And I was like, hello, Alex Martin.
Yeah, I was introduced like to you as like you should meet Maddi. She ran like an animation studio.
I did, a tiny one.
Yeah, and I was picturing like a huge one, but I think that the tiny one is even cooler.
No, it's not.
It's cooler. You have this. I feel like there's so many more responsibilities
that fall on
like
team.
One.
Which is
one
worse
person, which is
for everyone.
Yeah, it's worse, but it's more impressive.
Thank you so much.
Anyway, we met, and then we went to a coffee shop.
That was super far away.
We didn't realize we lived like a 20-minute walk away from each other. So Maddi suggested a coffee shop that's like an hour.
Well, I was going to therapy. I go to therapy in the East End, and I was like, come meet me where therapy is. And it's way out of the way of where we both live, because we didn't know we were neighbors.
Right.
It's great. It was so good. And then we poisoned someone by accident. Is this too much information? We accidentally poisoned an entire party before we began working together.
That's true.
No, I'm only sending this to the police right now. So don't worry. Cops are bastards. I'm not doing that. You're good.
We'd had coffee like once or twice, and then Alex had you just left your job at Big Sparrow. What was the company? Giant Sparrow.
Yeah.
And then he was sad, and then I was going to a party that night, and I was like, come to this party. And then he ended up burning a book at a bonfire that like had horrible fumes and poison.
Yeah, it was like a photo book. Those were some like heavy pages full of plastic.
Yeah. Anyway.
Is everyone okay?
I mean, everyone went home. We ended the party.
I checked in with you, actually. I was
you checked in with me.
Is
Caesar. It was Caesar's birthday.
We were at Caesar's
okay? Caesar is fine. Everyone was fine.
Yeah. He invited me to another party.
He did, and then you said no.
Well, I was just busy or something. I don't know. Didn't you end up not going either?
It got canceled, and then I went the next day. Anyway, to when it was rescheduled. Anyway, so we met, and then we were at a party. We poisoned everyone, and then months later we were having coffee again. No, I recommended a book to you. I recommended Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow.
Oh yeah, we read. We both
and then,
read.
And then we had a little book club, and then he got way ahead of me. And then, but I feel like because you reminded me of Sam from Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow.
And now you think I'm Sadie.
I think you're more Sadie because I think the way in
no
the
spoilers
book,
for the book.
No, but this isn't a spoiler. This is just how the characters go. I think in the book, like Sam is just like obsessed with Sadie's creative vision. Mm-hmm. And then whenever somebody pointed out to me, because I was talking about Alex once, and someone was like, "If you read Tomorrow and Tomorrow," and I was like, "Yeah, I read that." And he's like, "You sound just like when Sam talks about Sadie." And I was like, "That's true. I think Alex is the Sadie in this relationship. Like Sam is like okay, but
Sam
Sadie
is like okay,
Sam
you're
is,
great.
No,
what are you
thank
talking
you so much.
about?
Thank you so much. No, but it's like I just really enjoy your collaborating with your brain and just like the way I don't think Sadie, I mean, we're not in Sadie's head as much in that book, but I feel like I don't think Sadie has the same like I'm obsessed with Sam's vision. I'm just you know what I'm saying? I feel like you're the Sadie of the situation.
Yeah. I could be the Sadie of the situation.
You're the Sadie of the situation.
Sadie's the best.
Sadie's sick. Sadie's red.
That's not true. They're all the best.
They're all the best. Marx is the best of the best.
And it was a really good book.
It's a very good book. So it's part of why we decided to start a game studio.
Oh, also, the book, the title of the book is...
Oh, it's a reference to Hamlet. And then I didn't... wait, no, it's a reference to Macbeth. And then I didn't finish reading the book before we started our studio. And I named Undiscovered Country after a quote from Hamlet because I'd just seen Hamlet. And they were talking about how death is like that final undiscovered country that you can only meet when you die. And then as I finished the book, I was like, oh my God, this was almost named Tomorrow after the Macbeth soliloquy. So we're just living a little bit. I mean, we're not successful. Like maybe one day.
I mean, like they weren't successful immediately anyway.
Well, there you go. We have time.
Also, I completely separately met Alistair.
You did.
I think I met Alistair before I met you.
Oh, at a murder mystery
party hosted by Tristan and stuff.
Yeah, who introduced us?
Yep. And Alistair he was like a racist asshole villain character. And he just like I think that his character, like little profile, he was supposed to like be clever, but instead he chose to play this guy as just this like this completely transparently evil caricature, and it was amazing. And I was like, I need to get some information from him, so I like blackmailed him, and he was like, oh yeah, whatever, I'll do whatever you want. He like in the murder mystery, he was like, I don't know, cheating on his wife or something. And I was just like, I've got the information. And he was like, oh, okay, I guess I'll show you this stuff. Anyway, so I met him first as a cartoon villain. And
isn't he in life a cartoon villain?
He is. Yeah.
You know what's so funny about that is I was dating him at that time and he didn't invite me to this murder mystery party, but he talked about it a lot. And he was practicing a British accent for like 2 weeks. And I don't think he even did a British accent at the party, which is so funny. And he had like 5 different outfits and he didn't know, like he was so stressed. I know. Anyway. And then you guys made a small game together, right?
We did. Well, we started making a little platformer. This was while I was in the middle of wanting to kill gameplay, but I hadn't completely accepted killing gameplay into my heart. So I was like, yeah, we can make a platformer, but then it didn't carry on because neither of us have planning skills and also kill gameplay. I'm the planning skills of the outfit. I also feel like the first time are amazing.
Thank you so much. I also feel like the first time we met, you drew this little diagram of like a feeling. You had like a little heart of a feeling and then someone's head, and you were like, there's like a line between the feeling I'm having and somebody else's head, and I want to make it shorter or something. I don't know, but I felt like it was like a really cool little poetic diagram about gameplay. You drew it in my notebook, and I don't know which notebook, so it's gone forever. But I think that's part of why I was like, oh shit, Alex is a genius. Like I feel like I thought you were a genius the first time I met you, and so then so when we eventually started a thing, it was like, Alex is a genius. And anyway, so it started with Alex and I being like, I hate my job. And Alex was like, we can apply for funding.
I hate the concept of jobs.
Yes. He hates gameplay. The concept of jobs.
Not everything is gameplay.
Most things are gameplay.
Okay, that's true. And I hate them.
He thinks contracts are gameplay, government is gameplay.
Oh, no, democracy.
Democracy, you're right. Government is important. Democracy is anarchist. Anyway, so we started a studio and then we were like, we need an artist. We both know and love Alistair.
That's true.
And now
there's 3 of us.
And
we're undiscovering the country.
We're undiscovering. That doesn't mean dying, to be clear, in the metaphor we're living.
We're all constantly
undiscovering the country. Constantly discovering the country.
Well, you mentioned funding, so I'll skip to this question and we'll come back to some other ones. But I want to ask, so you mentioned in before we started recording the Baby Ghost Accelerator program, you got some funding and you were assigned a peer mentor, Rocket Adrift, who had previously been in the accelerator, and now you're meeting with them regularly. So can you speak to that experience and what the funding and the mentorship? Can you speak to what that's been like?
It rules. I don't know. It's really fun. We love Rocket Adrift so much, and the funding's been so helpful to like. For me especially, and I think all of us, to like have an excuse to really put time into working on our game. It feels good.
Yeah, it feels great.
It does feel great.
I'm used to just like fucking off and doing like weird shit on my own for no reason, and then I'm like, I did it. I did this thing that I said I would do. But it's nice to like have Baby Ghost be like, hey, like, we think the thing you're doing is cool. Here's like a little bit of money and support. And like, we're meeting a bunch of people. I'm really glad to meet Rocket Adrift. They're like in our city. A bunch of the people in the Baby Ghost program are like in various parts of Canada. But Rocket Adrift, I love them. They give us a lot of good visual novel advice. And now we're just like chatting and hanging out.
They're also just so like, I just want to be their friend. Like, I feel like after the program, I really hope we just keep in touch and like hang out, because I have so much fun. We have coffees with them, which are like really useful creatively and like professionally, but also just like a goddamn delight.
Yeah. It feels nice to be connected with like other people in the city.
Yeah.
I think that's like the best part of like hanging out with Rocket Adrift is I'm like, oh right, like game devs are not only on the internet, they're also physical people that I can meet in person, and I can force them to sit on beanbag chairs.
You can. We always make Titus sit in a tiny beanbag chair, and he's like the tallest person.
Yes.
It's so funny.
We don't force him. He chooses.
He chooses
I promise we offer him real chair. But he likes the beanbags.
He likes the beanbags. But I feel like before you even started doing this, you were talking about how a lot of your game dev stuff was only online, and like you were excited about working with me and Alistair because we all live with like a 15-minute walk from each other. Yeah. So it's like just so much nicer to be in person and not on fucking Zoom. You know? Yeah, except that I'm going to South America, so I'm going to become a Zoom person in the middle.
You're going to be a Zoom person. Well, that's fine, because we're going to get to hang out with Lindsay and Sloan and Titus, and you're not going to. Oh, sorry, those are the Rocket Trip people.
So let's talk about your first game. What's it about? You said it's a visual novel, but like, what's it called? What can you tell me?
It's called The Killing of the Quiet. It is you play as this detective monster hunter guy who is hunting this ancient body-stealing creature that we're calling the Quietus. And it has like a bunch of like phylacteries, and you have to destroy all of them to kill the Quietus. And to destroy them, you have to live through the memories that are contained in the phylactery. So it like stores its soul in all these things, and you have to live through the memory that's in the item to destroy it, to eventually kill the creature. So it's partially you're playing as this monster hunter, and it's partially you're playing as the Quietus in the lives that it's lived. So it's like this 500 years in this one small mountain village, and it's about how things change, and it's about living different lives. And I think at its core, it's like a kind of a metaphor for the different people we are throughout our lives, but like the fantasy. Anything to add?
I don't know. Sorry, I was lost in your description of it. It was great. I'm just thinking about our game.
Our game is so good.
I'm so excited.
I'm so excited.
So you've talked a little bit about this, and but I'm curious, like, how did you come up with that story?
This was an Alex thing.
Well, kind of.
We molded it together.
I had like a little seed, and then I think that you really grew it, and then Alistair came in, and now it's like a whole thing.
Alistair really loves of world building, so I think Alistair has brought in a lot of the world building stuff, and I'm a big theme person, and you're like the seed of the idea. Yeah. And
like
Alex
I came with like I am.
You're a poet, so I feel like a lot of your ideas are very poet and feelings based.
And like the initial idea that I pitched to Maddi was like, like you're experiencing the memories of this creature that is like how do I describe it? Like it is abandoning its old self, like in kind of like this like destructive fashion. And so it's like obviously the villain, but that wasn't even part of it. It was like about memory. It was about this creature is kind of like ejecting its memories because it doesn't want to kind of like deal with the past. So it sort of like seals its memories away, and I'm trying to, because like it's very connected to the ending, so I don't know how to spoil it.
Don't spoil the ending.
But you're experiencing the memories of this creature that is like, it's very disconnected from itself, kind of out of like fear, like it makes mistakes and it doesn't want to deal with the mistakes. So instead of dealing with them, it like bottles its emotions and memories up and then like tosses them away so that it doesn't have to deal with them. And so you're coming in and you see this thing from the outside and you're like, you're the bad character. I'm here to kill you, destroy you, whatever. But you go into its memories and you discover that it's this sad creature that keeps making mistakes, and it keeps fucking up, and it just like is like not willing to face up to its mistakes.
Also if you don't like face your mistakes, you're never gonna get better. So like it's kind of you just keep switching lives when you're like, oh, this one's fucked, I'm gonna be another person now. Like you're never gonna grow as a person. And then Maddi and I talked a bunch, and then she did a lot of work like fleshing it out, and adding a lot of stuff that makes it like a real story. I'm just like, here's like a nice little poem. Maddi's like, but what if we made it a novel? What if we made it intense? And then Alistair's like, what do they look like? What do they eat? What is their word? Like okay, like what is the Alistair's industry? So specific. What is the how does like there's a character in that who's rich, and then like one of his first questions, which annoyed me, he was like, what does she do though? Where did she get all her money? And I was like, Alistair, I don't know if we're in the industry right now, but it ended up being super useful. It was like, what is the town's industry? Oh my god, it was. What is the town's industry? And like what are they famous for? What are they? And it ended up changing completely. But for a while he was like very like, they're a cannery town. All they do is cannery. And I was like, I don't. Wait, I missed the cannery. We were walking in from Bampot West, and he was pitching me cannery so hard, and I was like, Alistair, cannery has nothing to do with our themes. I like hotel much better. Our town is it's like a stopover town between two important places, which I think is like I think that's thematically relevant. The transient nature of the lives that the quietest is living, right? So I like that much better than cannery.
Well, I really like the sound of this so far. I want to play it right now, but
play it when it's.
I want to play it too.
I want to make it and then play it.
That's true. I also want to do that.
I want both of those things.
So you've talked a lot about inspiration so far, but I'm very curious because you both have backgrounds in your respective industries. So I'm curious how your previous projects are influencing your creativity. Like, for example, Maddi, you've written for a lot of children's TV shows, and Alex, your games seem very experimental and even community-driven. So do you find projects like these have informed your work so far on Killing of the Quiet, or are you more making a clean break and trying something new?
So for me, I'm part of why I'm excited about this is because I've been writing kids TV for a few years now, and I need to write something fucked up. So this is sort of like a catharsis for me of like, I want to write something that says something I'm interested in and has some like fucked up elements. Is swearing cool?
It's fine. Yeah.
Okay. Yes. And then I'm trying to use my web series experience. So like what I'm bringing to this, we're going to release our game episodically, although Rocket Adrift told us not to do that. So, but whatever. Or no, not Rocket Adrift. Black Tabby told us not to do that. Yeah. Anyway, whatever. I think we're still going to do that. And so what I'm bringing is like you have
the experience with it.
I have the experience with releasing episodic things.
Yes. You have the experience and you're like, here's the plan. Let's do it this way because I've done this before. Yeah, and you liked it, right?
I did like it. It was cool. I know how to do that, but I also accept that games are a different beast. But I think it's still easiest because like one thing we also talked about was like you want to work on shorter projects so you don't get bored and like stuck in the middle of something huge. So I think episodic is like we make one episode, it's like contained, and then we can do the next one, which feels exciting again to start. Anyway, whatever. So I'm bringing that to it. I'm bringing more of my web series experience and more of my pent up wanting to write something like meaty from kids. What about you?
I want to kill gameplay. So it makes sense that it's a visual novel. Initially, I pictured this game as like a little I make a bunch of these little like poetic little platformers with writing in them, and I had pictured the project as one of those, and I had applied to, I forget what they're called now. I won't get hung up on it. And then I was talking to you, Maddi, and you were like, what if it was a visual novel? I remember this. You were like, what if it was a visual novel? And in person, I was like, I don't know. And then I came back like a day later, and I was like, no, Maddi, let's do it. Let's do a visual novel.
Is that because you played Slay the Princess? I feel like after you played Slay the Princess, you were like, you got to play this game because it's sick.
I'd already played Slay the Princess.
You already played it.
I was just like, I hadn't quite made the click to being like, I want to like leave what if there was no gameplay? And I think in that moment it was kind of like, oh cool, like no, let's just do this thing because Maddi knows how to write. like, and I really want to see Maddi's writing, and like a game can just be writing, I mean, it's not like it's just writing,
and it's art, and you're working on delivery. It's really cool to watch you do the coding stuff, because you're like, oh, like what pauses do I use? Like you're becoming an actor in putting the script into
really
it. It's so neat.
I guess you're asking about my experimental and community stuff, and I think the community stuff is actually more just like translating to team stuff. Like when I make games that have like kind of community stuff, I'm like inviting other people to be creative so that we can make something together. And in this case, I'm just asking.
Your team members.
I'm just asking my team members. I'm like, hey, like, please be creative. Like let's all just be creative and cool.
Super
together.
Fun, and we get to talk to them. But I also feel like if we end up with an audience and we're releasing episodically, we can include the audience in Let's Be Creative Together. Like their feedback will inform how the story moves and goes, depending on what they're feeling, and also in making a visual novel, you're inviting your player. You're trying to predict the ways they want to be creative, but you're inviting them to create their own story in the story you're making. Like you're trying to give them enough options so that they have a very tailored experience that is theirs.
Yeah,
which is cool.
Yeah, I really want to like when the game presents options, like this is like on the kill gameplay angle. Every time that there's like a choice for the player, I don't want the choice to be like you as the player trying to figure out what's the right choice, what's the wrong choice, but it's like an invitation to be like it's the game saying like, hey, like, who are you? What do you want? And then the player gets to go, here's who I am. Here I am. Hello, it's me. And then as developers, writers, designers, whatnot, we can kind of figure out like, who do people want to be, and how do we just say like, yes, like it's cool, like this is who you are, and we love you, and also people are dying and everything's terrible, but it's both of them. But it's like when things are terrible, it's not like things are terrible because you made the wrong decision. Things are just gonna be terrible no matter what.
Sort of like living, sort of like real life. Like just like the things going on are very bad, but you can still have a nice time in the meantime.
So Alex, actually, sorry, I want to ask you to speak more about this kill gameplay philosophy.
He loved it.
What are you going on about, basically?
Please.
Okay, I feel like the simplest version of kill gameplay is I've been making games for a really long time, and I don't understand the role of game. Like I feel like the role of gameplay is like it's like worse at doing a lot of things. Like if I want to be creative, there's like lots of different ways as a person to be creative, and I feel like playing games that let you be creative is like such a like a bottled bad version of creativity. I don't know, does that make sense? But it's I think the main part is like it's like it's so hard to talk about. It's like a very limited language, and oftentimes gameplay is used as like a kind of like a weird like labor padding thing. Like if I'm reading a nice book, there's no labor involved. I'm just turning the page and I get to read what's on the page, and what's on the page is stuff that a person put there because they thought it was important. And when I'm reading it, I get to go, hey, like, why did they think this was important? How do I feel about it? And I feel like in games, the role of gameplay is like so often this kind of like weird like machine padding that's like, hey, like, why don't you just like push a bunch of buttons? There's also like I'm trying to figure out how to describe this. I spent like 8 hours embroidering like a set of like just like a bunch of numbers. My partner's making like a little pouch for knitting needles, so it has to say like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And it says the number of millimeters underneath each of them, and like that's it. And I also like help her knit sometimes, and so I do like there's like reverse knitting, which is tinking, and these are things that are labor, but when I'm done with them, I have a physical object and I've learned a skill that relates to my life. And when I play games, I'm like, well, I'm doing these things, I'm doing the labor, and I'm learning a skill, but the labor doesn't, like, I don't end up with anything which feels real. Like the game can just give it to me, but it is choosing not to. And it's not usually a skill that pertains to my life, especially as games get better at, I don't know, like, they just like I've spent so much of my life like learning how to like invent like weird little systems, and it's very like fun and engaging to engage with a system that has been designed to be fun and engaging. But at the end of the day, you leave the system and it's like, well, what? No, not like now what? And it feels like a weird like hole to fall into, because then it's like, well, I'm good at platformers, so now someone is going to make another platformer that I can use the platformer stuff, but it feels very like a rabbit hole of
like an MLM, like the skills you have here can be used here.
Actually, I started having this thought when I was thinking about like crypto.
Yeah, kind of.
Because crypto is like, it's this little world that like people, like I looked at it from the outside and I was like, what the fuck? Like, how does this exist? Like, how do people care about this thing that they only care about because people are telling them to care about it and like building things? And crypto, not crypto, specifically the NFTs, right? And the overlap between NFTs and games and the earn to play stuff, and all that kind of like cracked my brain open. And now kill gameplay.
Kill gameplay. He's made Alex kill gameplay.
It's true.
But I think that's so true. I think like that's something that has always bothered me about games, and that's why they're like less of a big part of my life. Like I feel like I like to play games on fucking easy mode, because I'm like, why would I spend my time getting really good at Dark Souls? And I've wasted so much time getting good at, like, what am I going to use that for other than fucking Dark Souls? I have other things to do. Or I always get mad at people that love, and I know most people love these, management games, like where you have to manage your resources. It drives me nuts, because I'm like, I'm doing that with my own food at home.
It's true.
My own life. I'm managing my resources and my time at all times. Why would I want a simulation of me doing that with like a little guy? I'm doing that.
Yeah.
And I think the beauty of gameplay is interactive storytelling. Like I think like that's such an interesting, and we don't delve into interactive storytelling enough. We're so into the engaging little dopamine loops, and we're less, I mean, there are great narrative games, but I feel like they're less popular, and I want more of them.
Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah. And I want the side of interactive storytelling, which is not gameplay, because like
you want the emotional side.
Right. It's the
understanding each other, right?
It's like having a little conversation.
Yeah. It's the reason why reading a book is great. Like it's why great art feels great. And I feel like games are like, there's plenty of like games that are great art, and I want more games that have decided to be great art and not just harness like the reward center of your brain, that they want to engage you genuinely.
Yeah. And like I think it's very hard to kill gameplay.
It is.
I mean, even when we're working together, like you and Alistair, like you'll like pitch something that I'm like, I don't know.
I want a detective
smells
thing.
like gameplay.
I know. I keep being like, because we're playing the Monster Hunter Detective Guide. I'm like, well, what if there's like a collecting evidence thing? And Alex is like, that's gameplay.
Right. And it's like, that's true. I have to,
but you're allowed.
And then recently we were having a lunch, and Alistair was like, Alex, I think I understand you when you say kill gameplay, which really, I think it. Yeah. So now I feel like everyone's on board.
You've gotten us all on board.
And I'm like, wow, it's nice.
You did it. You're spreading it.
Well, you mentioned, understanding how each other and like understanding feeling and how we feel. I think my favorite part of a game that's also episodic, Life is Strange, my favorite part is at the end of each chapter, they show you who made what choice and the percentage of people that made what choice. And like some of those are obviously made based on storytelling choices, but other times it's just like, did you help the person or did you leave the person like to flail around and suffer a little bit? And depending on like what that other person did or how they interact with them, like it's a good litmus test for how people understand each other and who's kind and who's sympathetic and who's maybe a little more evil or a little colder. And I think I wasn't on board with kill gameplay. Like I was like trying to understand it and thinking like, well, my favorite thing about games is actually gameplay more than story, because Nintendo games, which are my favorite, focus so heavily on gameplay that the story is so secondary that feeling almost doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like, but then you were talking about that and you were saying like, you're killing gameplay in favor of like understanding feeling. And I think there's going to be a lot of people that resonates with, because again, I think a lot of people like me, when they play like something like Life is Strange, for example, and at the end they see what those choices are made. If you have a way to like connect people through that, I think that'll be like, anyway, I'm not trying to pitch your game. Make it how you want. Don't listen to me.
We want advice from everyone.
Yeah.
But honestly, I think like if that's kind of the direction you're heading, is understanding each other, I think that's really, really cool and really, really sweet. And I love that.
We're trying to be cool and sweet. That's our whole thing.
It's about death and sadness.
Both.
Okay. Death, sadness.
We have multitudes. Death, sadness, cool, sweet. That's our tagline.
Yeah.
This question is for Maddi. We're going to move a little bit aside with a different. Well, I want to hear more from Maddi's experience as a bisexual woman. But like, how is your experience as a bisexual woman, informing the characters in the town and your inspiration in general for the character, for everything in the game.
We haven't written a ton of stuff for the game yet. Right now we have like a broad outline, and we're starting to write chapter 1. And chapter 1 immediately has like a sexy goddess in it who flirts with you a little bit regardless of your gender, and a sexy like lady who you can be cheating on your husband with. So like we've pretty much from the get had some bisexual energy going on. And I think it's important to me to have queerness included in the stories, just because it's part of life, and it's weird that it's not in more stories. I mean, it is becoming more normal now, but especially in our game, as you get to live so many different people and so many different lives, like, so your gender will change all the time. So you get to live as a man, you get to live as a woman, you get to live as all kinds of people. And then so obviously the sexuality of those people will change. So it's not just going to be queer stories, but they're definitely going to be in there, because that's, if you live 500 years, that's happening to you, right? Yeah,
That's true. That's cool.
I mean, there's also like part of the fiction is you also like take on their personalities in life to some degree.
Yeah, you're supposed to try to become them.
Yeah. So there's like two things. You are like hopping between like kind of people bodies, but also you are sort of like borrowing their lives.
For sure. Borrowing and taking, you can ruin it. That's one of the things I'm excited. There's one character we want to have where they like, there's a man who has just like a nice life, and when you take it over, like you inevitably destroy his like marriage, and if you make him a worse dad, and you just like ruin it by accident. I don't know. That's not queer related. That's I just am excited to ruin a man's life.
So we've talked a little bit about this, but maybe there's other components you can speak to. Like, what are your goals with this project? And not necessarily like deadlines or scope, but like personal goals or avenues you'd like to explore relative to your own careers, especially with where you're coming from and where you're heading to next.
My pie in the sky would be I love TV writing, but I've been bored with it for a while, and I would love to transition into narrative games. And I think that it's a niche that's not super common. And so we're making the niche. That would be pie in the sky. At minimum, I think it's cool to learn how to run a co-op studio. I'm really excited to just have like the knowledge about that, because we get to be in these workshop courses about it, and to like try to make something. Like no matter what happens, we're going to have at least a cool demo that I got to work on with my friends. So that's the smallest goal, and the largest goal would be to create a niche that I can live in. What about you?
I'm interested. I'm very interested in like putting more narrative stories into games, and I feel like you're like the perfect person to be working with. I'm really happy to be working with you, because I feel like I understand the technical and design aspects of making a game that features narrative heavily, but I don't know how to write like a whole story. I know how to write, like I've written short stories, and I've written some poems, and I've put some poems in games, and I've like messed around with like twine and stuff. Thank you. Yeah. But I'm just like, on this like ridiculous kill gameplay thing that I've got going on.
It's not ridiculous.
I know, but I gotta hem it up.
Okay.
I'm like, what matters, right? And I think that like something the book you lent me, all caps, story, right? And it's like story is the only thing that matters, and all other art forms suck.
Listen, yeah.
You have no right. That's just the way it is.
That's just my brain.
And I'm really excited about it. Like my favorite recent games that I've played have been like very heavily like story, but I don't know how to write a story anyway. So I think I'm just really excited to make something that has like a cool story written by like an amazing writer.
Well, we're both the amazing writer.
Oh, thank you.
We're all, and Alistair's he's a good world builder, man, and maybe he will become a writer. He hasn't been comfortable with being a writer yet, but one day. We're gonna get it out of him.
Squeeze that writing out of our artist.
But gross.
Juice him.
We're gonna juice that boy. He's gonna hate it. But I've been reading Poetics by Aristotle for story inspiration, and he talks about story being the most important thing too. He talks about, because people understand the world through narrative, right? And then like telling a well-told narrative can change somebody's perspective on their own life, on like the world, and they can do it like secretly. Like they don't even understand the change that's happening in their viewpoint until it's already been done with the story. But I think people, I don't know, I think people underplay storytelling a lot, and that's my bias as a writer, I guess. But I don't know. I just think it's super important, and I'm excited that you're excited.
I'm excited
to do it. Yeah. And I wanted to say, my favorite thing Aristotle says is, he says a good story is one large movement of the soul, which is so cool. So like I keep thinking about our game and being like, what's the movement of my soul in this game, right? And I'm like, it's a game about letting go. My movement of my soul is feeling less like I'm clenching my fist around my life and more like I'm doing this. That's like, so if I were to, does that make any sense?
Yeah.
I don't know.
You want to let go of life.
I want to let go of not just anything.
Okay.
Clinging. Yeah. I want to be a Buddhist.
I mean, I think based on what you described about the narrative, it already sounds like you're moving in that direction.
Well, this is,
see people's 2 = 4 in this case. Yeah, no, I think it sounds really cool. It sounds really cool. I'm very excited to play it. I want to play it right now. Can I play it right now?
You can play our tiny demo. We have the tiniest demo where you meet our drunk bisexual girlfriend. Would you like that?
It's very unfinished though. We need when Alistair's art gets in, then we'll send it to you.
We have the funniest anime sprites in there right now because Alistair hasn't done the art yet. There's like this like really muscular king man who we have as the goddess of death. It's so funny.
So wait, would I be playing it though, or would I be reading it since it's a visual novel and we're killing gameplay?
True. Yeah. You'd be sort of reading it. You wouldn't be playing anything. You'd be
what
clicking.
Are verbs?
Yeah. Oh God.
Killing verbs.
Kill verbs. Kill movement. Yes. Anyway.
So last question before we wrap up. If you could give advice to other queer developers or aspiring developers in general, what would you say?
Okay, so I'll like the queer piece. I think finding your community is very good. Like I think Baby Ghost has been really cool because like it's for marginalized communities. So like a lot of people in there are queer. So we're sort of handed a community on a platter. But it's really helpful to see people that are like you making the sort of things that they want to make and like talk to them about the sort of themes they want to explore. I feel like finding a community is like numero uno. And I think also a lot of solo devs just don't like I keep meeting people now that I'm like dipping my toe into game developing when people are like, what are you up to right now? I'm like, oh, I'm doing game stuff. And then I keep meeting people that I had no idea do solo dev stuff. And they're like, I've never met another person that works in games. And I'm like, Toronto's full of them. You should go outside. I think go outside. What about you?
Wow. Mine would also be go outside. I've been going outside a lot. I've been going to I went to a art gallery reception that a person named Layla, I met them at a book swap, and I was asking them about what's art? What's up with that? And she was just like, hey, come to my gallery. And it's been really cool just meeting people. I think that it's really easy to stay in your little bubble. I've been in a game dev bubble for a very a long portion of my life. That's not the right way to put those words together. And it's just been really cool to be like, hey, what if I met a bunch of literature weirdos? What if I met people who break mirrors and put them in a gallery and sell them for thousands of dollars?
That's sick.
Who also? I don't know. I'm just meeting a ton of people, and I think it's really valuable to me.
Hanging out with artists too at the drink and shop.
Yeah.
I think that's so true though. I feel like that's one thing. I love traveling, and one of my favorite things about traveling is that I get to meet all kinds of people I would never meet in normal life from all over the world who do all kinds of things. And just listening to different people tell me about their lives and what makes them tick. I feel like a more whole person. This is not, I guess, related to game development, but it kind of is, because everything you take in your life is your artistic output. You have to take in as much as you can to put out anything interesting.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
No, sorry, I wasn't trying to cut you off either. I was just
no. I think go outside is our thesis, right?
Yeah. I mean, I can't really speak up to the queer experience, but I can speak to the game dev experience. And I feel like as an identity, it's very easy to settle in and be like, this is what I'm all about. I'm all about games. And then there's if you start reaching out, you'll find other game devs. But then if your entire circle is a bunch of people who are also game devs, it's there's so many genres to get trapped in and be like, oh, I'm making a thing. I don't really know that many visual novel game devs, and it's nice to meet them, but I don't want to get to a point in my life where I'm everyone I know is a visual novel game dev, because then it'll be a little what's the
echo chamber, a little whirlpool,
a little toilet that you flush, and the whirlpool. Wait, hold on. That's a bad metaphor. I'm sorry.
Visual novel people toilet.
I'm calling all the people trapped in their circles. It's not a visual novel.
Having
go outside the toilet bowl.
Go outside the toilet bowl. Genius. Sorry. I agree. No, I definitely agree with you. I know what you're saying, and I I co-sign it.
I'm going to call the podcast Go Outside the Toilet Bowl. That's going to be the episode title.
Yes.
That's going to give some weird messaging to people
I'm
who
a
don't listen
poet.
until the end. He's a poet. I tell everyone this guy, he's a poet.
No, but thank you so much for coming on. Where can people find you? On social media or wherever?
We haven't done any company social media, and I am not on social media publicly. You could find me on my YouTube channel if you want, but I don't post there anymore. Alex?
I don't really post a lot there. I'm droquen on Blue Sky, and I'm droquen2 on Instagram, because I made droquen and then I lost the password in the email that it was attached to. I posted some pixel art tarot cards on my Instagram.
That's so cute.
Well, again, thank you so much for coming on. This has been really informative. I'm very excited to play your game. So hurry up and get it done so I can play it or read it and enjoy it.
Thank you so much for having us. It was so fun talking to you.
Yeah. And that just about wraps up this week's show. Thanks for joining me for another episode of True Avatars, a queer video game podcast. If you've made it this far into the episode, I really appreciate you taking the time to support queer-made content, which is a big deal. It's been really fun working to bring this podcast to you. I always do my best to bring queer voices on every week to discuss what's relevant in video games. I hope you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at WildZoeAppears. I also have a YouTube channel, Wild Zoe Appeared, which is currently kind of dead since I haven't posted in a year and a half. I'm trying to rebuild my social media presence, and this podcast is just the start. Importantly, if you or anyone you know is queer and involved with video games in some way, please do not hesitate to reach out. I would really love to hear from more queer voices in video games. Your voice is unique and valid and worth sharing with the world. And if you don't want to be on the show or know anyone who's interested, but you know about a cool queer video game or a games industry story that's queer related, please let me know. Things are tough out there, and queer people need to stick together when we can. Bye, True Avatars. Thank you so much for listening, and I look forward to speaking with you all again next week. Take care and stay safe.